Hello, I'm Joe Devon, the co-founder of Global Accessibility Awareness Day, and I wanted to thank T12t for running an accessibility meetup and inviting me to say a few words. So the way that GAAD started, it really was back when I was a programmer working on American Idol, which is a pretty big, which was at the time by far the #1 TV show in America. And as I was working on it, I ran into a video by a programmer, a program manager by the name of Victor Tsaran, who was working at Yahoo at the time, and he was demoing a screen reader. And as he was looking at the homepage of Yahoo, it was the first time I had seen a screen reader where the page was being read aloud so that he was able to see it. Because when you're blind, you can't use a mouse and obviously you can't see the screen. So I was blown away by it for a couple of reasons. One being that as a programmer, I it was solving a problem and it was such a cool technology. But on the other hand, I also realized that I didn't know how to make sure that pages were accessible to people and for screen readers, particularly at the time. That was before I knew that there are a lot more aspects to accessibility. So that percolated in my head for a few years, and I figured I hadn't really heard people talking about it. So I figured that it wasn't a big thing when it came to developers. And so it percolated in my head for a few years. And then my dad started getting older, and my dad was brilliant. He spoke 10 languages, was really a genius. And as it was painful to watch him lose his hearing and his vision. And then when he tried to go to the bank, it took all day because he couldn't drive, obviously. Um, and then he couldn't hear, so he couldn't bank by the phone. So he really should have found the solution in online banking. However, his bank was inaccessible. So I was extremely frustrated because it really took away his independence. So I wrote a blog post proposing that we create a global accessibility awareness day, because I realized that some developer probably didn't even realize that they were taking away the independence of people who needed an accessible bank. And I didn't expect much to come of it, but in fact, it turned into this crazy viral event, which is now the third Thursday of every May, and we're in the ninth year. And the event back in 2019 had a Twitter reach of 195 million unique users, which is a pretty mind-blowing figure. And I'm just going to share. I only have a few minutes to share with you, so I'm just going to give you a few moments that were pretty special. And the first one I'd say is that in year 3, the same bank, even though I never mentioned their name publicly, the bank that prompted writing that blog post came back and they said that they're doing an internal event. Please don't publicize it because we know we have issues with accessibility, but we're going to be working on it internally. So that was a pretty crazy moment. I've never had that kind of impact on an organization from the inside, let alone from a blog post on some obscure database blog, turning into this event that gets to a bank and makes a difference. A few other notable moments are that Tim Cook, the CEO of Apple, started asking that there be events all week in every single Apple store globally. He started hosting concerts on campus, including with Stevie Wonder. Microsoft released an Xbox adaptive controller on the day. And then all these big tech companies started changing their homepages for the day, from IBM, Microsoft, Apple, Verizon, and more. And we got a lot of tech press. So this was a pretty great moment for us to see this happening. And then, despite all of this great stuff, one thing happened is that we had the Blind Onion. I don't know if you're familiar with the Onion, but it's a popular satire, and this Blind Onion is a satirical Twitter Twitter account, and they tweeted out, "The world eagerly anticipates participating in the next 364 days of global accessibility oblivion." Basically, making fun of GAD, but more about the fact that despite all of the notice that GAD gets, the web is really inaccessible. And I bring this up because rather than take it negatively, I took it as a challenge to really try and understand what is the state of accessibility for the web. And so I started planning to do a state of accessibility report, but actually a company called WebAIM and Jared Smith created the very same report like a couple of months before we were going to release it, and we just decided to collaborate with them on doing a state of accessibility report. So that was last year, and unfortunately the numbers are pretty bad. Last year, 97.8% of the top million homepages are inaccessible, with an average of 59.6 errors per page. And this year, it even got a little bit worse, with 98.1% of pages inaccessible and 60.9 average errors per page. So we're doing some activity around a GAD pledge, which we will announce shortly. And we're really trying to attack this problem and really try to make it so that next year we will see better figures. So I bring all of this up because it's all of us that are in it together, and it's people like you who are putting together this event and people like you that are attending the event and being a part of it that are going to make the change. None of this would be possible if not for the community, because the community is what made it so big. So with that, I will say thank you to all of you, and please take the GAD pledge. Enjoy. Have a happy Global Accessibility Awareness Day. Bye-bye.